Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the She.Must.Knit podcast. My name is Erin and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys had a great week. I had a pretty good week. It was pretty uneventful, just, the regular everything life going on. But I feel like I had a pretty productive week. Like, I'm looking at the table in front of me and there's a lot of stuff. I know last week I said that my special anniversary episode, and thank you for all the comments who said that you really enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun for me too. But I know I said that I thought that episode would be a little longer, and then it wasn't really that much longer. This episode might be a little longer, so if you like longer episodes, hey, here you go. So before we get started, I'm going to have a quick sip of my coffee. What? I know, who am I? But I don't know, as the weather's been getting cooler, I just have some days where I just feel like some coffee. So I have some carrot cake coffee. And if you don't know, I do prefer a flavored coffee, and I do enjoy trying unusual flavors. So as the weeks go on over the fall and winter months, you might see some more interesting flavors than just carrot cake, but that was quite tasty. And so we're all set to go. What do I have for you? I have works in progress. I've been working on a couple of my projects this week. I have a new project that I've cast on. I have a finished object. I finished something up and I'm actually really happy with it. I have my collection. I have the vote for next week. I have a magazine feature. I actually picked up a magazine this week and there was some really good stuff in it, so I wanted to share that. So that's a lot of stuff to get through. Let's get started. First thing, I'm going to start with the most, I don't want to say the most boring thing, but socks are socks are socks, right? So I have been working on my Tweety brother socks, and my goal for October was just to finish the first sock, and it is done. So I've got the first sock finished. This is just a vanilla sock, my usual 70 stitches. I do a German short row heel. I am not sure. I'm going to have to look more closely at the heel before I get to that point in the second sock. I can't remember if I increased some stitches before I start. So sometimes before I actually start the heel, I'll increase some stitches just to give a little bit more depth, and then I'll either decrease them or leave them for a wider leg. I don't remember if I did that with these, and I want the two to be the same, so I need to kind of examine my stitches and see if I did that, but otherwise it's just 70 stitches. And then for this one, I pulled some of the leftovers from my September Desert Vista Dyeworks socks in the Zom Dinos color, because I thought the colors kind of complemented the main skein really nicely, and I added a fun little stripy toe. So the main skein is from Dyed by Lindsay, who is sadly no longer dyeing. I'm not sure if she has anything left in her shop. I'm so lucky I snagged this one. I think this might be my one and only skein from her, but I know my brothers will love his pair of socks. He picked this yarn out from my stash. And it's a BFL base, so I think it's going to be really nice and sturdy. It is not like super soft, but for socks it'll be fine, and I think they will wear really well. So I finished my first sock, and I have got a good portion on my second sock started. So this is how much I've got done on my second sock. You can see I've got the little toe in there, and I've started working up the foot of the sock. Now I am not going to be putting a lot of time into these right now, especially since we're nearing the end of the month and I need to finish my October Desert Vista Dyeworks socks. I've got my first sock done and I'm working up the foot of the second one. I have less than a week, so I need to focus on those. But my goal for October was just to finish the first sock. These are my last pair of Christmas socks, so I am not worried about finishing these. So I've got these started, and once I get the second sock started, I find it goes really quickly. So I'm not worried about finishing these for Christmas, but these are my Tweety brother socks. Next, okay, so what am I going to show you next? I think I am going to show you the project that, while I did work on it, it is not any farther along than last week. Can you figure out what that is? So, not last week, because that was my anniversary special episode, but the week before I showed you the work that I had done on my Little Miss Margo poncho. and I was having a dilemma because if you remember, this is the first half of the design, and I love this. It's, oh my god, super bright. But this is for Avery, and she loves pinks and purples, and she picked this yarn out for me for my birthday, so I wanted to make her something with it. And I was hoping to get this done by the time the weather really cooled down, but it's at this point she wouldn't be able to wear it as an outerwear, like to go to school and stuff, because she does need a full coat now. But I was thinking, sometimes, you know, when you're around the house and you're just a little chilly and you want to put something on, because I do plan on lining this might be good for that, and then when the spring comes, she can wear it then as an outerwear garment. But I had finished the back piece, and I really, really, really loved it. And I had got a good start on, I guess that's the front piece. It doesn't matter, it's the same thing. I'd gotten a good start on the back piece. Then when I was showing it to you, I realized that I had made a mistake in the stitch pattern. And I had asked you, what do you think I should do? Because I was torn, because in one way, something like that, because it was a very distinct front and back piece, I knew once the garment was finished, it wouldn't bother me. She'd wear it, it'd be fine, it wouldn't bother me. But I had lost all my interest in working on it, because working the stitch pattern the way I was doing it was not as enjoyable as working the stitch pattern properly. And also, I liked how the stitch pattern looked when it was done properly, better than the mistake that I had made. So basically the way I had done it, I had just, instead of doing the stitch over to the whole front panel, so here, instead of doing this stitch pattern all the way across, some of these rows I had done as purls, so it looked like a rib. So I didn't know if I wanted to redo it, because I would have to rip it all the way back to the ribbing. And a lot of you guys, I got so many comments, and it was so great reading everybody's ideas and perspectives. And a lot of people said, you know, it looks fine, it's a design feature, just keep going. And then other people were like, oh, if it was me, I have to rip it out. You know, I couldn't deal with it. And I could see both sides, because on one way I could deal with it, but on the other way I wasn't working on it. So obviously it was bothering me. So one comment did say, why don't you drop the stitches down and fix it that way? And I replied back saying that I had thought about doing that, but because it wasn't just, like, in my mind, it wasn't just knits and purls, there was like yarn overs and slip stitches and stuff in there. For some reason I thought that it would just be more difficult to do. So I had kind of just brushed that idea aside. I was either going to have to rip it out or just keep going. So this week I was like, okay, we need to finish this. I want this done. This was one of my October goals as well. I don't know if I'm going to finish it. Depends on how much I get done over the weekend. But I was like, you know what? Worst case scenario, I'm going to have to rip it out anyway. I'm going to have to rip back to the ribbing. So why don't we just try dropping down the stitches and just seeing if I can do it? I have done this kind of repair before. If you remember the green sweater that I made Dennis that I showed in last week's episode, and that was my first ever really complicated sweater. I messed up those cables quite a few times and had to rip back, or not rip back, but drop down the cable, fix it, and then work my way back up. And those were cables. Those were more complicated cables. So I have done it before. And I was like, why don't we just try it? Because if it works, awesome. I saved myself all that time ripping back and redoing it. And if it doesn't work, well, I was going to rip back anyway. So I sat down with it yesterday and I was like, let's just see how it goes. And it worked, guys. It took me just over an hour to do. So much less time than if I had to redo everything. So here is, this is in the exact same spot that I showed it to you 2 episodes ago, but now this middle panel looks correct. And there might be some little glitches and tension and stuff from repairing it, but you know what? I like it. Looks better. It looks more like it's supposed to look. I don't think anybody's going to notice if things are a little off now, but I have fixed that entire panel, and it really, really wasn't that hard. If you haven't tried doing that, try it, because like I said, especially if you're in the situation where you're going to rip it out anyway, just try it. It didn't take that long, and now all that work that I put into it from before is saved. So at this point, I'm going to keep on working. I'm going to try and get this panel done, because after that back piece is done, all I have to do is do some seaming, pick up along some edges and do some ribbing and just little bits and pieces like that. And then I do want to line it with like either a fleece or something a little warmer, maybe a flannel or something. I do want to line it, but usually that doesn't take very long. So I am back on my way with that project. Thank goodness. I'm so happy that I sat down and I decided to try and fix that. So the next thing I have a brand new project, and I wasn't planning on starting this. I had in my mind that I wanted to start this. This was on my list for October, was to start a new winter set for Avery. But originally I was going to use my leftover yarn from the poncho for this set, so I was waiting until the poncho was done. I decided this week that I can't wait till the poncho's done, because we are now, the weather in the morning and into the afternoon is cold enough that she does need a cowl. She does have hats, so I'm not worried about that right now, but she does need a cowl in the mornings and all day at school. And the cowl that I had made her, I think I made this 2 years ago, it was getting a little small for her, where if she had it tucked down into her coat to cover her neck, it was no longer, like, she couldn't bring it up and cover her mouth and nose, and if she did that, then it raised up and it wasn't covering her neck and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, emergency knitting emergency, I need to get a new cowl started, even if I can't use that yarn. So I went through my bins. I have 2 bins of yarn that I have specially put aside, either stuff she's picked out, stuff I've picked out for her, stuff that she's, you know, given to me as gifts. And I found some yarn in the colors that she'll like to start a new cowl. So this is what I've got so far, and it is the same pattern. I honestly cannot see ever making her a cowl in a different pattern. I will put up a picture of basically I made her 2 years ago a version of the Incognito cowl, which is a free pattern on Knitty. And the way the original pattern is made, there's a fold over brim at the top and the bottom, but the center part of the cowl is just a single layer of fabric. And when I made that one originally for her, I was looking through the project pages, and I found someone who did the project and modified it so that it was a double layer all the way through, and that is what I wanted. So since then, I have made several of these. I think this is my 5th version, and I always follow that pattern modification. And I will put, so I always link in my projects, I link to that Ravelry member, her project, because she lays out how many stitches she cast on and how she did it. So I link to her, but that's the way I've been doing it since, and it's a really, really quick pattern. So last year, so 2 years ago, I made her the original cowl, and then last year I made some for her bus driver. This is long and winded, sorry, but you know, I have to lead up to why I'm doing it this way. So last year, her bus driver kept commenting on her cowl and said she wanted one because I had a little mustache on it and she wanted that. So I made her one for Christmas. And then she commissioned me to make some for her daughter and her granddaughter. And the sizing that I used for her daughters, I have a picture, and this is where I'll pop it in. I have a picture of Avery modeling that cowl. So it was made for an adult, but I really like how it fits her. It comes down right down to her neck and across her chest, and you can see it goes right up to, if she wants to pull it up, it comes right up to her little eyeballs. So I am modeling this one after the sizing and the stitch count that I did for the one last year that I did as the commission. So now we can get to the project. So this is what I have started so far. And the way this modification works is that you start with a provisional cast on. So that's what this is here, this little contrast row that you see. You start with a provisional cast on. You do so many rows and then switch to your main color. So this is going to be the inside color. Really, you can switch them in and out so that it's reversible, but I'm going to treat this as the inside color. You switch to your outside color. You do a picot row, which is yarn over, I knit 2 togethers all the way across. And then you keep working in your main color for as many rows as you want the cowl to be tall. And then you kind of work backwards and switch to your And then you do another picot row and then switch back to your inside color and then do the same amount of rows minus these original 9 or 10 rows that are down here. It's all laid out. Like I said, I will link to the project page that kind of spells it out, but it's very, very simple. I just made some quick notes on a little piece of paper, and now I am off to the races. I will be working on this, and when I've made these before, I think I timed it. It's about a 6-hour project for me. So if I can work on it a fair amount this weekend, she should have this for Monday to wear to school. So this is the inside. The inside of the cowl is going to be all one solid color. So it's this yarn here, and this is a Willow Yarns, Willow Daily, and this is some deep stash. I bought this years ago. I bought 3 or 4 balls of this with the plan to make Avery like a little kind of coat sweater. That is not enough for her anymore. So now I'm just going to be using it in bits and pieces and stuff. I might use the rest to do the hat part that I want to go with this. We'll see. So that's going to be the inside. And then the outside is this yarn here, which is a sweet roll, I think. Let me find, where's my label? Oh, my label's gone missing. I think it's, oh, no, there it is. Okay. Yes, it's a sweet roll. So there we go. It's a sweet roll by Premier Yarns, and I picked this up this summer when I was doing the Lakeside Yarn Crawl. So this is going to be the outside, and it's pinks and purples, which are her favorite. And this year, I don't plan on doing a mustache on this one. She has requested, instead of a mustache, to do some a little kitty nose and some kitty whiskers. So I think that will actually be easier than the mustache. The mustache isn't hard to do, but I think it will be easier. So that is my plan. Like I said, I am just working up the body of this cowl, and then I just have to do the whole, you know, another picot row, your rigmarole, and then turn it inside out, and then you have to graft the 2 sides together, and then you're done. And it is a super cozy, snuggly cowl. I was thinking if I really, really, really wanted to make it like super extra Canadian winter warm, before I, as I was folding the 2 pieces in and before I grafted everything shut, I could put like a layer of fleece in between the 2 layers. That would make it super warm. I might see if I can do that. We'll see. The one that she's had, she's never complained about being cold with it, and it's just the 2 knit layers. So that is my new project, and then I have my finished object. I am so glad. Okay, A, I am glad this is done, and B, I'm glad that I actually like it. This was such a roller coaster of emotions while working on this project. I am talking about my Girona top. Last week I showed you my progress on it, and I was almost done. I had the front done, I had the back done, I had the shoulders seamed together, and all I had to do was give it a really, really good block, let it dry, and then seam up the sides. And guys, right from the beginning, if you remember when I cast this on right at the beginning, it was always like this roller coaster, because it was like, oh, I'd be really happy with it, and then I'd realize I was doing something that wasn't going to work, and I'd have to either rip it back. I think I had to restart it because my stitch count was off, and then I was doing decreases because I thought I wanted shaping, and then I realized those decreases were going to be too snug, so I had to accommodate. This is just all this stuff. And even when I blocked it, so in order to block it, I found that for this yarn, I had to soak it and then really stretch it out, like be really like rough with it, and to get it really drapey. And even when it was laying out blocking, so I blocked it before I seamed the sides up, and even as it was laying out blocking, I was like, oh, this isn't gonna work. This isn't gonna work out, because the gray side where I added the increases to kind of cancel out the decreases that I did wrong on the other side, the shape, the 2 sides just looked completely different. I'm like, they're not going to fit together. It's not going to look right. The gray side just looked so much bigger. It looked like it was going to be longer. It looked like it was just going to be totally off when I tried to put it together. So I seamed it up this week, and by some miracle of miracles, everything worked out. I don't know how, but something worked out in the universe, and this project actually worked out. So I am going to pop in some pictures. I took some pictures. I was able to do it myself without my little photographer helper. Fortunately, our house has some weird little box attached to the side, and I was able to prop my phone up on that and take some pictures. So I am going to insert some pictures of me wearing it. I think it actually looks pretty nice. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and the true test will be if I wear it. That's always the test, because I make things, I say I like them, and then I never wear them. I might wear this. We'll see when the weather warms up, but I might wear it. So I'm not, you'll be able to see it in the pictures, but basically I finished it all up. It's all seamed up, and I'm just going to go over, it's all nice and drapey now. You'll be able to see in the pictures. Last week I had mentioned that one of my concerns was that if the fabric didn't loosen up and become drapey, that the sleeves kind of, before blocking, kind of stuck out weird, and you can see that they lay perfectly drapey now. I love how this fabric feels, but yes, let's go over all the bazillion changes that I made. So to start with, the yarn that I used was the Barocco Denim Silk, and it is a mix of 20% silk and 80% rayon. And I explained last week how I got this gray color and I made a cardigan with it, and I just didn't like it, so I ripped it out. But I really did like the yarn, and I wanted to use it for something else. And I decided to make the Girona top, and I really liked how the Girona top looked, and I liked the concept of it. But obviously this has turned out quite a bit different than the Girona top. So first of all, the original required a light fingering yarn, and this yarn is a worsted weight yarn. So I had to do a gauge swatch. I had to figure out my gauge. I had to calculate based on the width and size and everything that I wanted, how many stitches I would need, and then I compared that to the stitch count in the original pattern, and it matched up best with the 50-inch size of the pattern. So for any kind of shaping, like there was actually shaping that was done in the shoulders to kind of make the sleeves kind of fall naturally off your arms. I followed the shaping for that size. Otherwise, the only other thing that I followed in the pattern was the chart for the lace. And here it is, and it looks really, really nice in this yarn. I'm really happy, and that's one of the reasons I did a swatch as well, to see if I liked the lace in this yarn and if it would fall and drape nicely, and it does. So one of the other changes I did was in the original pattern, the designer started the lace chart right at the bottom of the edge, so right on the edge of the piece, the lace started like right here. And what I did is I did the same amount of ribbing as the other side, and then I did a little bit of stocking net, and then I started the lace pattern. I didn't like how it kind of scalloped along the edge, and so I just wanted to start it a little higher up, and so that's what I did there. So I changed the gauge. Obviously I used different needles. I didn't put it in my Ravelry page, and I don't remember. It was probably 4 or 4.5 millimeter. I'm really not sure, but I used different needles. I added shaping. So one of the problems that I had with me trying to figure all this stuff out is that I added decreases into the blue side. And if you've seen my previous episode, you'll remember me talking about this. I started with the stitch count that I needed to fit my hips. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to want it to go in a little bit, right? Because I don't want it to stay that big. So I had added decreases. But then I realized that while, yes, I like a smaller fit on my bust than I do my hips, the best place to do those decreases is closer up to my bust and not along my waist, because I like it to be a little flowy over my waist. And so when I had finished that first half and I was kind of trying it on and comparing it to, you know, my shape, I was worried that it was going to be too snug. So when I started the gray half of the garment, I decided to add increases every place that I had put a decrease on the first half to try and like puzzle piece it together. And you may be able to see in the pictures when I'm wearing it with the blue side frontwise, that you can kind of see the gray from the back peeking around a little bit, and it does actually add a little bit of visual shaping. I thought it might, and it does. It kind of adds this visual shaping to the front when I'm wearing the blue side frontwise. So the other two things that I changed about this was just the neckline. In the original, it was a higher scoop neck on both sides, and I put a V-neck on one side and a lower scoop neck on the other. And then also the placement of the contrast yarn. So in the original, the contrast yarn kind of goes right across the chest, and I was a little concerned about the placement of that, if it was too high or too low or right in the middle. I didn't want to risk it falling in a weird place across my chest. So what I did is I decided to raise it up and just do the contrast on each side of my arms. And I really like how that looked. I like how when I'm wearing the gray side front, you get that little bit of blue on the neckline. I did an I-cord, an attached I-cord edge, and when you're wearing it with the blue side, you get the shoulders bringing in the gray, and a little bit of the blue neckline as well. So all in all, thank goodness it came together. It's done. I don't have to worry about it for the rest of the year. And that makes 3 garments that I finished for myself this year. And I don't have a good record with garments. And so I'm pretty pleased with that. I will probably not finish another garment for the rest of the year, but I do have some plans in my 2019 Crafty Bingo to do some more garments that I want, and hopefully will turn out. And maybe this will be a turning point for me in garments. We will see. So let me know what you think about how that turned out, because I did a lot of modifications on it, and it was, like I said, it was kind of a roller coaster, and I'd be curious just to know what you think about how everything came together. So that was my finished object. And finally, before I get to my collection this week, I have a magazine feature. I was at Shoppers Drug Mart this week, and I often like to, especially if I go there and I have some extra time and I just kind of want to browse around, sometimes I'll go over to the magazine section and just see what's new. And very rarely now do I purchase knitting magazines. I just find there's maybe 1 or 2 patterns in there, and I don't use magazines as much for pattern resources, and so for me it's just better to buy individual patterns on Ravelry that I know I will use. However, okay, first of all, can you guess what drew me in when I saw this? Can you guess what drew me in? Look at these little faces. Look at these little faces. This is the Interweave Knits Gifts edition, the holiday gifts, and I do have some of their previous ones of this. It's a really good issue just over the years, because they pack a whole lot of small, quicker projects in there that are meant to be good for gift giving. So these little guys were just staring out at me from the magazine stand, and I was like, I had to go look. But when I started flipping through, there were just so many. Like, it was like page after page after page after page of stuff. I was like, ooh, that's really pretty. So the very first set is this really nice, there's lots of color work in this edition as well, but like these color work mitts and this hat, and I was like, oh, that's pretty. And then I turned the page and it was like this color work cowl, and I was like, oh, that's pretty too. And the next page were these color work mitts. Like, look how nice those are. And I was like, oh, I like those. And it just kept going. So there's this shawl here. I will never make that, but that's okay. But then there was these convertible mitts with these kind of just very unisex, I don't know if this is slip stitches or it's like very basic color work. And Avery actually has a male bus driver again this year. And I was thinking convertible mitts and like this kind of pattern, I could totally see that being something that he might be able to use, because, you know, with the flip top and stuff. So, and then the next page, there was a whole bunch of just really versatile like hats that a lot of people would be able to enjoy. And of course, I'm flipping through and I'm flipping through. It's another color work cowl, like really pretty projects. And as I'm going through, I'm like, okay, like these are really, really, really nice, but where are those darn little animals? That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see those little creatures. And so I'm flipping through another, look, colorwork mittens. This is a really, really nice issue. A shawl, there are some shawls in here, but I will never make the shawls. And then, like, look at these, like, those could definitely be unisex as well. Like, those would even be a really good gift. So I'm flipping through and flipping through. I'm seeing all these beautiful colorwork projects, and I'm like, where are those darn animals? And then I get to the point where, like, look, oh my god, that's cute too. So many patterns. There's another pair. So I get to the point where it starts with the patterns, like the actual patterns that you follow, and I'm like, where'd the animals go? So I'm flipping and flipping and flipping. They're all the way at the back. Well, what sealed the deal with me buying this magazine is when I got to the little animals. Like, look at his face. It was the ox, and then I guess this is an ox and a llama. So these guys were on the cover. And so they had that pattern. But then when I flipped the page, there were 2 more animals. Look at these guys. Look at their little faces. And I was like, okay, that's it. There's 4 really, really adorable animals, plus up a billion really, really pretty color work accessories that I could totally see referencing either this year or along the lines in the future. So I decided to pick this up. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. I can definitely see making at least one of those patterns as part of my gift pile this year. And then I really want to make one of these guys. Please let me know. Okay, I'm determined I'm going to make one. Which one do you think I should make? Should I make the ox? Should I make the llama? Should I make the dog? Or should I make the raccoon? I want to make one of them. I don't know if the llama had, if the hat was part of the pattern. I'll have to look after, but let me know which one, if you think I should make one of these. And then he can live on my little shelf with all my other little bits and pieces. But I really want to make one of these little creatures. So, along with this week's fabric vote, you'll have to let me know which little stuffy I should make. I might save that for December. December is kind of my month. I try and get all my gift knitting done before December, so that December I can just work on the projects that I want to work on. So my Cozy Memories blanket and other things, and this would be something like that just make me happy, that I want to work on. So let me know, like, which one. I don't know, I'll have to think about it more. So that's it for all the knitting stuff. Next I have the collection, and so I had mentioned 2 weeks ago that I was going to do a larger collection with both the jack-o'-lantern fabric with the owls and also the fall leaves, and that's what I did. I have a larger collection, and then I have some yarn, and I have a vote for next week. Now I will say, going forward, up until now I've been kind of doing my collections mostly every week, sometimes every other week, depending on the size of the collection that I'm planning. But going forward until the end of the year, I'm going to switch to doing a collection every other week, just because this November and December are kind of my break months. So they're the months that I turn my focus on to getting ready for the holidays and working on my gift knits and just slowing down a little bit, because once the new year starts and I start getting ready for all the shows and stuff, it gets crazy again. So November and December are months that I kind of take for myself to just scale back a little bit. So going forward, the collections will be, I'll be putting up a new vote every 2 weeks, and then in the new year I'll start back up again as I start preparing for shows. And then I have plans. I'll have to announce. I'm not ready to go over all the details yet, but I have new plans for the 2019 Mystery Sock Blank Club. There's going to be a new theme that's going to carry us through the year, and it's a theme that I'm really excited about. I think it's going to give us some really great color inspirations, and then I'm also going to be adding additional options, so it's not just a sock blank. So I'll probably have to change the name of it, because there'll be options to choose yarn, sock sets, just different amounts, so different sizes of skeins, and then also there might be an option for every 3 months to get a bag that goes with that month's theme. So I'm still working out the details, but I'm really excited for the 2019 version of my mystery club. So let's finally get started with this collection. This was a kind of fall Halloween-ish collection, but hey, Halloween can be all year, right? Right. So the first fabric was these pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns with the owls, and I was able to get 2 sidekick bags out of that fabric. So I have 2 sidekick bags out of the jack-o'-lantern fabric. And then the lining that I found for this was just so cute. I had to get it. The color is perfect. And then can you see what they are? They're bats. And when I finished doing these 2 bags, I had enough left over to do its own bag. So these bats have their own sidekick bag, and they have a little bit of a contrast bottom because I needed, this piece was just a little bit short compared to what I need, but it's got a little bit of a contrast bottom, and then the bats, and then inside are some stars, some night stars. So I've got 3 sidekicks in a Halloween print, and then I have the leaves. So I have a mid buddy and a bitty buddy. So those are my drawstring bags. I have a regular pouch and a wee sidekick pouch. And then I have a sidekick in the leaves as well. So lots of fall themed bags this week. And then for the yarn, I went way out of my comfort zone. Like neutrals and autumn kind of tones are not where I automatically go when I'm dyeing yarn, but I was using the bags as inspiration, and that's where it took me. So I did like a full on, like, I'm going to call this like autumn spice colorway. So it is a little bit deeper than it is showing on screen. It's a little bit brighter. But yeah, I did this really, really kind of pumpkin orange. There's different tones in there. There's some reds and some browns. And then I did all these little speckles. There's olives and browns and oranges and just deeper shades. So this is going to be the Autumn Spice colorway. And then I did also a sock set. So the sock set has the main skein of Autumn Spice and then a mini of this kind of olive color, and then you can kind of see where these lighter areas are that kind of has a green being brought in. So I thought this was just, these will be autumn in a sock. If you love autumn, autumn in a sock. So those are the yarns and bags for this week, and then we have the vote. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the vote, and then we are all done for this week. So I thought for the vote, I found these fabrics, and I thought these would be really great because they kind of still go along with the whole October Halloween-ish theme, but these fabrics would be perfectly, like, yeah, they're like all year round fabrics, but they kind of pick up on that theme just a little bit. So the first one, I love the colors in this one, is this fabric here with all the flowers and leaves and moths or butterflies, and then see, they've got the little skulls on them, and I thought, see, that's it's a nice subtle nod to October and Halloween there. So that's your first pick, so the garden. And then the second pick are these sugar skulls, and again, I love the colors, but it kind of works for October, but doesn't have to be. So this is your second choice, sugar skulls. So let me know in the comments below your choice for this week, either the, let's call it Goth Garden or sugar skulls, and I will have those. I'm not sure if I will have those next week or the week after. We'll have to kind of see. I might do those for the next week, and then going forward it will be every 2 weeks. But yeah. So let me know which fabric that you want to see for the next collection. And then, yeah, if there's any other comments you want to make, I'm happy to read them, and I'm always happy to respond. So that is it for this week. I hope you have a lovely, lovely weekend and get to do all the crafting that you want to do. And I will talk to you soon.